All right, welcome back to the Roadmap to Retirement.
This is Roadmap to Retirement. Tune in for financial tips, investment strategies, and smart money moves to supercharge your retirement savings. Alex Neri, CFP, and guests are here to help you build your roadmap to retirement.
Jon Sheldon making his third appearance. Jon, I guess people already know you, but give the nice listeners a quick intro to who you are, what you do.
My name is Jon Sheldon, and I am the owner, founder, operator of BelleauWood Coaching, which is I would say, performance and professional business coaching practice based out of Rochester, New York.
All right. I don't want to derail this too much, but you brought up an interesting point with the not knowing what your title is kind of thing. How do you feel about people with a small business that give themselves the title of CEO? They click on their website and they are CEO of themselves and maybe one other person.
Sure. Do they also put up they're also the administrative assistant?
They might.
Or the marketing director?
They are all of those things. That's how that works.
That's what I guess that would be my caveat to that, is like you're also all of it.
Yeah, you were the janitor.
You've also probably
clean the toilets, yeah. Okay, we won't talk about titles too long, but I always think it's funny. Self-employed people have to choose a title for themselves, and they either go the humble route of, I don't really know what my title is, or they're like, I am the CEO of Cultivate Financial Planning, and then you'll go to the website and it's like, yeah, dude, it's you too, good job.
People can do whatever they want. I'm not here to hate on them, but I think it's like this glamorization of what being a small business owner is when you do that. And any real small business owner knows that it's not just all sunshines, vacations, work whenever you want type of stuff.
Yeah. There's also Sunday nights and early mornings. Anyway, without talking about today, so I've been talking a lot about, and the internet's not a new thing, but this FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. And in some recent episodes, we've gone into that with other people, also some solo episodes, but just talking about this concept of retiring early. And I think one of the big, not issues with it, but one of the things that people have to consider before they move down that path is finding some type of purpose. If you retire at 45, what is life look? You have this 40 to 50 hour void in your life that used to have the purpose of going to work and doing something. If you're in this position, you're probably a relatively successful person, so your career probably meant a lot to you. Yeah. Now you leave that career, you're financially stable, you've got enough money and investments to sustain yourself for life, in theory. So it's finding that purpose, and I know you talked a lot about this with your clients, the coaching work you do, and helping people develop that. So I guess to toss it back to you, previous episodes we talked about the financial part of that, how to make that happen.
Yeah.
In this episode, I'd like to talk more about the meaning, lifestyle, purpose type of conversation. If that makes sense. I think it makes sense.
Yeah. It's a big part of the work that I do with people at every stage of life. I think what I call it is, I think that there's 4 pillars for my thought process around this, and one of them is purpose. And we can get into the other 3 as well, but I think that's something that is unique. Unique's not the right word I'm looking for. It's important to every single human that I run into, whether you're a business owner or stay-at-home wife or father or whatever. I think having that deep center of purpose is remarkably impactful for every aspect of your life. And I find it really challenging when I run into clients initially, I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to define, and that they often struggle with, is this thought process. What is this purpose and what does it mean? Not just this. We can do a lot of retirement statistics around purpose, and we'll dive into those, but even mid-30-year-old or a young 20-year-old. Like I was very lucky early on in my life that when I joined the Marines, there's this sense of purpose that you do anything for, right? Even if you didn't know if it was right or wrong, we could talk for 10 days on that. But truthfully, it's like, without purpose, and something I actually really forgot about, and that's why I put it into this model, is like, how important was that to just go be the best version of yourself, is having this deep sense of purpose that is unshakable. And that's what I like to define with my clients. I think most people in professional, I deal mostly with business owners in some way, shape, or form, high-level salespeople, but I think what people always define as purpose when they actually do this work is almost always, what's my business purpose? Okay, your business definitely exists for a reason, you have a purpose for it, but what is your purpose? And making sure that those 2 things are combined. And when you find that misalignment, almost always that's the first step of where the misalignment actually is. maybe your business or your actions are in misalignment with what your purpose of who you are is.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I think one of the challenges I keep picturing like this archetype of who is this conversation for? And I think about it's not the retiree. I'm not talking about the person that's retiring at 65 years old and they're going to go golf with their retired buddies and like their grandkids are around that have that purpose. It's the person that's stepping away from their career at a younger age. So let's just say they're 45 years old. So they're not going to hang out with their grandkids. Maybe they have kids and their kids are in school. They're not hanging out with them all day. All their friends are still working. It's not like this dream scenario of I can just stop working and go hang out with my buddies all day, because your buddies maybe don't also have that ability. They have to go to work. So it's like finding that purpose. And I think there's activities you get into. There's also maybe a reality that the typical person that's reached this pinnacle of financial success to be able to retire at 45 is the kind of person that's always going to find like a passion project to be involved in. Like they are going to be retired for a week and then they're going to go start another business doing something they've always wanted to do.
Yeah. I think that's definitely a big piece of it, and a big part of the population that I find that struggle really hard with it. I also find like the busy professional in general struggles with this concept pretty hard. I had a client like a year ago. It's probably, who knows what the time for it was, but he came on the call. He was really frustrated. His day blew up, and because one of his daughters got sick, and he had to go do all this thing. And one of the things that I challenged him on, and I think that's one of the things I love about having a really strong, authentic purpose statement, not like one that you ChatGPT generated or something like that. Like having one that's actually you is, if you don't make it up, you can't challenge yourself on it. Right? If somebody else makes up your purpose, you can't challenge yourself.
Your words, not mine.
Exactly. And that's the coaching too, right? Getting people to find their own answers so you can't come back to let and work, John. Okay.
I don't know if I have a purpose statement. Should I?
Yeah, you definitely should. Think about this. Think about this for a second. So he comes on the call, he's super frustrated because his day blew up because his daughter got sick. All right. What do you think his actual purpose was? He's a young father of 3 girls.
His actual purpose should be to be there for his daughter.
Yeah, and that was his purpose. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know if that was a trick question.
No,
that was my answer.
You guessed it right. You guessed it right. His purpose, we talked about it probably 6 months prior, was to be the best husband, father, period. He hired me as a business coach, and that is his purpose in life. And so the direct challenge, and I won't use his name, but direct challenge would be like, hey, that is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. That you live this life and you own your own business, so you can go take your daughter to be there with her in these circumstances. And that kind of, I know it seems super, super basic, but that kind of blew his mind. And I'm in that day, yeah, you're right. That is what I'm supposed to be doing. That is why I'm working so hard. It's like, you're working so hard, so then you can just not see her. It's always like the financial plan you're going to kick out of this dude. That was always like the funniest thing to me. You get in and everybody says it's the best career on the planet because eventually you'll have time for all of the stuff I never miss my kids' soccer games. I'm always here, all this type of stuff. And then you're watching them and they don't do any of that.
It is hard to, I had that myself a little bit. Like I've had different opportunities that come along that, for anyone listening, the first 5+ years of this career, you're dialed into work. You're working a lot of hours, long hours, you're not making much money. And then eventually it flips where you do have better income and you start to be able to dial back the hours a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that. So I've had opportunities come along more recently where it was going to require me to go back to that long hours, workaholic mentality, and then to be able to stop myself and say, no, I already did that. I've already been through that part. And the entire point of doing it in the first place is so that when I got to this stage of life, I can have this, I hate the word balance because it gets overused, but I can have this balance where I'm able to go out and spend time with my wife and we have a baby now. I would be able to do that and not be in the office until 7 o'clock every night trying to grind it out. I don't need to do that.
And you just use that word so perfectly.
Balance? No.
The whole purpose of that, going back to this word purpose, the whole purpose of me grinding it out was to get to this point. Now, if you get to your point in time in your life and you're like, no, that's still what I like to do, all power to you. No issue. Everybody's journey is your own. But if that was the purpose, then recognize that.
Yeah, there's always levels to this stuff. So like you can always look at somebody that career-wise is way more successful than you. And I think the wrong mentality is to be like, oh, they don't deserve it, they got lucky, whatever it is. The truth is they just were willing to put in that far work that much longer to you. So for you as a professional, you have to be able to evaluate where you are today and say either yes or no, I'm not willing to put in the work it's going to take to get to that next level. And then for me, like I've had a hard time accepting that. There are things I won't accomplish in my career because I'm not willing to make the sacrifice in my personal life to do that.
Yeah, and another thing that you just brought up too, I think is really interesting. Almost every client that I have uses this word success, and I'm always shocked to find out how many of them don't have the definition for that for themselves.
Okay, so is success dying with more dollars in your bank, or success
Yeah,
enjoying
right.
your time? Yeah,
Exactly.
there's so many cliches around this stuff.
I know,
you and I
but-
both are. It's still true. And it
But
needs to be
it's
said.
true though. You can define success as, we'll say, income, right? You can definitely do that. And again, I'm not here to tell anybody what success means to them. Part of my success, truthfully, is monetary. I'm not ashamed of that.
Yeah.
That is a part of how I view success. We live in a capitalist society, and the things that I want to do in my life require money. That's not evil. But people can define it themselves outside of that. And who am I to judge? Or who is anybody to judge that? Oh, that guy's not successful. Why? Because he doesn't drive the same car, live in the same neighborhood, live on the same side of town. Who gives a shit?
I think about the car thing, which could be a little bit of a weird segue, but like a younger me, like 23-year-old Alex really wanted to buy fill in the blank, nice German car.
Yep.
And now I'm 34 years old and I could afford that car without really breaking a sweat. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying,
Oh,
do the math. Yeah, whatever, we have that later. But like, I don't have any desire to have that now. I don't know,
Yeah.
you probably felt the same thing.
I did.
I've seen your car, I know you drive, it's
yeah.
Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, but I don't know, like why?
100% I'm the same way. You look and you're like, I want that.
Yeah.
Because you're emulating whoever came before you, and again, almost creating that level of success. And maybe at that point in time in your life, that didn't mean it for you.
I think it's also
for
motivation
me,
when you
sure.
need it, right?
Is that-
I think it's motivation when you needed it. When you're 22, 23 years
For
old,
sure.
seeing somebody with a nice car, where it gets you fired up. You're like, I want that, I want to achieve that. And then the goals shift as you get to a point where it gets closer to me where it's car guys. I'm not judging the car guys. Like,
Neither.
if a car really makes you happy and you're really into it, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm not, but I've got other vices for sure that we were talking about before the camera, like that I spend my time and energy on. And then you again mentioned another great word, that motivation. That's that fourth pillar of this model that I built. But I think that's really important. We've gone down this road, I think, too, of not to go down a rabbit hole of everything at least that I see online is just like discipline. And coming from the Marines, I thought that too. Like, why does everybody need to be all motivated? Why can't you just be disciplined?
Do it when you don't want to do it. That's the mantra.
Why not? It's like, yeah, but that motivation is like so you're starting like a lawnmower, right? Motivation is full. You got to get going to then get the engine going. And that's something I actually forgot in my professional career for a while. Yeah, you were motivated to do that initially, and then it turned into discipline. And so if you're just sitting there and you're scrolling on Instagram or whatever your vice is on the algorithm, like whichever algorithm owns you, right? You can get sucked down to this path. But again, finding people that are really struggling with, man, I can't do this, was because you never found something like Alex just said, like you just said, like you haven't found something that's willing to create that spark for you. And if it's a car, cool. If it's a golf membership, cool. If it's traveling, cool. If it's buying a house, like who cares? These are all monetary things. Or if it's like time. Man, looking back at my life, the only thing is that I really regret, and my wife and I have talked about this a lot. We were playing these like card games. So
Okay.
at night, have you?
Card games? I've heard of card games, but I need a little more. What kind of card
Not
games?
playing money.
Okay.
No, you get them and it's like questions. I recommend everybody gets it. It's been actually really great.
Conversation starter kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
How to have a hard conversation.
Yeah, but it's like fun. But it's like questions that we've been together for 10 years. It's like questions that we've never asked each other really.
Okay.
And some of those things, like one of them was like, what is there anything that you regret or would you do over? One of the things so sillily was all of them was all like travel. And at the time in my mid-20s, I really thought about that. But now getting older, it's like, yeah, I wish I would have went to China when I was offered to go back in 2014. That would have been cool. That would have been a cool 2-week trip with the graduating class or whatever at Nazareth. And it's all of that type of stuff. But taste and preferences change, right? You can have whatever motivates you at that point in time. At that point in time, I may regret it now, but it's just been motivating. I looked at it and I was like, yeah, I've been gone for a while. I want to be home.
Yep. You can go now.
I probably will. I don't think you can go now.
You can go somewhere else.
We're going to Japan.
You going to Japan? Nice. All right.
My 40th.
That'd be cool. All right.
Yeah. Very excited for that.
Nice. So tell me more about the framework of the
Yeah.
coaching program. So there's these different pillars. What are the pillars?
Yeah, the pillars are purpose, vision, environment or ecosystem, interchangeable,
Okay.
and we'll get into that one, and motivation is the fourth one.
Okay. I feel like I know what 3 of those are.
Okay.
Ecosystem. Tell me about ecosystem.
Yeah, so ecosystem is you're part of my ecosystem in a good way.
Wow. All right.
You're a part of the people person. So think about ecosystem like person, places, tools, whatever. Technology now, I think, is a major important one. How, in what ways? So when we're thinking about being the best versions of ourselves, it's like, what rings do you want to be in? Who do you want to be around that pulls that piece of it out of you? Like what tools like that you know that you use or need in your life that pulls that best version out of you. So like our conversations pull out a really good version of me because they're authentic. And you have this way about you that is very direct, but also empathetic.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
I get what you're saying. So the ecosystem. So it's about the people you surround yourself, the technology you surround yourself with,
Places.
maybe even physically where you choose to live.
Yep.
And so it reminds me of, I'm sure you've heard this, but like you're an average of the 10 people you spend most time with, that kind of thing. So do you recommend to, like professionals, do you recommend to your clients that they audit the people they spend time with? Like you go into that depth of, you got to cut out this toxic friend that drags you down?
Yes.
Do you put them accountable with that? Do you follow around all day and say, don't talk to that person?
No, I think it's... Great question. I think ecosystem your response did not surprise me. I think it's the number one out of the 4. I think there's a couple that get lost in the sauce a little bit, but I think out of the 4, I think ecosystem is the most overlooked.
Okay.
Because ecosystem generally requires you to make choices beyond yourself. You know what I mean? Like that example you just gave. Do I need to cut this person out of my life? Or do I need to add somebody in my life? That requires a conversation that a lot of times people aren't willing to have. I've had multiple friends over my life that I'm no longer close with. Would I still consider them a friend? Yeah, I've had nothing against them, but sometimes we would be hanging out years ago, multiple times a week, and I haven't seen these individuals in 2 years. And for me, it was a subconscious decision of I'm on a different path, but your ecosystem matters so much. I pay for an office right now because it's an ecosystem that I want to be around, not because I need it. I can work out of my house. I have 99% of my calls are all Zoom. So I'm there because that's something that I realize that I need. I need to be around the Alice's, the Chris Hanks of the world. Like I need to be around those types of people for me to thrive.
That makes sense. I think about the way that you framed it of, it's not always cutting somebody out, it could be adding a new person to it. And I think that framework works a lot in other areas of life to compare it to. So one obvious one is health and nutrition, diet stuff. So there's an idea of if you're trying to fix your diet, make it an inclusive diet, not an exclusive diet. That the goal isn't to stop eating ice cream. The goal is to make sure that you're eating whatever extra serving vegetables every day.
Yeah.
And by doing that, like you're only gonna eat so much food in a day anyway. So you're adding vegetables means you're pushing something else out. Maybe it's ice cream, maybe it's something you shouldn't push out. But similarly with people, like if you're adding a new friend to the fold, you've only have so many hours a day to spend with the people in your life. So if you're spending whatever 2 hours a week with this new friend that's a positive influence, that's 2 hours less a week you're spending doing something else, probably hanging out with somebody else. So maybe like you're pushing out a bad influence in that way.
Yeah, I can use a personal example. So I'm surrounded by the Alexes, the Chris's, the Marks, like all of my friends are primarily in financial planning, and they've all owned their businesses now for an extended period of time. You're at a different stage of business than my coaching practice is. And so what I realized too is, no, I don't want to cut the U's out of my life, but I need to add somebody that's more in that startup mentality as well. Like I need somebody in that first 5 years that's still in like massive growth mode. I obviously went through a career transition a couple of years ago, and so that's my mindset that I'm in. And so I've added people, to your point, into my life that are like in that same stage of business that I want to be around and have much of them today. Like, yeah, because we have great conversations. The conversations that I'm having with my buddy JC are just different because we're in more of that same stage of business.
Okay. We're great for using an example now, but
Sure.
let's turn this back to the way you consult with another professional. So you're talking to somebody who's a client of yours, they come to you for coaching advice, that kind of thing, and they recognize that they need to add this new person. Is there a dating ad for this? Do they go to networking events? How are they finding if you want to find somebody that's in year 2 of the business that can relate to them, there's not a lot of those people out there. If you go to your natural market, your high school buddies that you hang out with,
Yeah.
most of them are not starting a business. Most of them have traditional careers.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a business thing. Like, I use my buddy JC as an example, but I've got another friend who's in sales. He's it's more of a mindset. But I think what you just described is exactly what some of the work that you do with I do with clients is like, how many times you might think of this, how many times are you willing to spend 50 minutes thinking about it? Or is it just a passing thought while you're driving, and I really want that person in my life? And I think I really do believe like this. I went through this 10 years in my life where I was what I call collecting friends. And one of the funny things that my buddy Nate and I laugh about all the time is I don't have any more friend spots available. I'm packed.
Boss is full.
We always say that to each other when we can't come to an event that we both want to go to or something like that. And it's okay. I'm packed in friends anyway. But in a weird way, especially like in that early stage career where you're making a lot of clients and you're making a lot of friends along the way, you do get full, quite frankly. And there's a very easy opportunity and chance for everybody to then negate the people that really matter most and that should be in your ecosystem. That's where I think the spending time with the people you should be spending time with really comes in handy. And that's where I view it as roster spots. If I'm looking at, you and I have actually talked this a lot about masterminds and being around like-minded professionals. Like, I have only so many places in my life, just in life, that. So who are my type of people? In this age where we can connect with I work with this a lot with individuals. It's like, oh, I don't want to reach out to my friend or whatever. It's like, okay, you're friends because you follow each other on social media, not because you've actually talked to each other in 5 or 6 years. Doesn't mean you're not friends, but you're not real friends.
Define friend.
Yeah.
Person I knew once.
Yeah.
Person I met one time.
You're
Yeah.
an acquaintance now. It's okay.
Yeah. All right. You get behind that.
So that's ecosystem, right? It's a lot more than that. Technology, right? Technology is a massive part of my business and a massive part of my life now. There are things that I need at this point in time, quite frankly, to function well, and those have to be set on a priority level as well. This is how my ecosystem thrives. The person that I keep bringing up his name, but like I kept annoying him with the internet stuff at our office. It's a part of my ecosystem.
It's 2026. It should work.
It does work. But,
Okay, good.
But this is the thought that we work with clients on too, or I work with clients on too. It's like defining that super basic it seems, but it's not when you really look at life in the grand scheme of things. These basic necessities, these standards, this foundation of life, and that's what the blueprint is. Who are you at your core? Like, again, what motivates you? What ecosystem are you around? Where are you going in life? And who are you right now? Who you want to be? If you could pull that out of yourself and put it on one piece of paper, that's what I like to do, is get it down to a postcard. In here at least. I'm going to carry it around. Get it down to a postcard that you can remember, because then you're going to be able to challenge and make smart decisions based on who you actually are every single day. And when you get good at it, now it's just subconscious. It just starts happening.
You're making me really want to make an index card and figure out who I am.
You should.
All right. It's going to be my worst.
Make sure you get it memorized, okay?
Okay. All right, next time I see you, you'll ask me if I have my index card on me. I'll pull it up in my wallet. But I shouldn't have to pull it up, so I should have it memorized. All right, so I'll memorize all that.
Yeah.
Cool, man. What else do you want to cover today? We're getting to the end of our time. Is there another thing that we want to make sure we touch on?
No, and I think the last piece of it is that decision making. I was sitting down this part of the next. I call this whole thing blueprints, briefs, and battle plans. I'm not a programs coach. Well, programs coaches, you can buy this from me. This isn't sellable. It's like if you're a client, you get access to this, and that includes workshops, which this is like a big long workshop thing. But what I found is that people are often they know the decision that they want to make almost immediately, but then they sit on it. And in 2026, something that I've tried to regenerate in myself is working quickly and making smart, tactical, strategic decisions quicker.
Yep.
And so that's the next part of it, is the briefs and battle plans piece. And that's just teaching people how to be comfortable and confident making a decision, and then being able to review that after the fact.
So you got to be comfortable just making a decision and sort of accepting that you're going to figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
waiting 10 years to have everything buttoned up
Yes.
is not really an option.
Yeah, no, that's what I find with a lot of people is this, I call it paralysis by procrastination, where it's not that you're lazy, it's that you're going too deep on a lot of stuff instead of just starting to figure out if it works. And most of that's but why people do that most of the time is they don't feel confident in their decision-making abilities. Maybe it's because they made a bad decision in the past. Maybe it's because they don't have all the facts, right? And so those are super, super simple. It's clarity, understand, being clear on what you want, condition, assess the condition that you're in right now today, and then cost. Know that there's a cost to everything. And then are you willing to pay it? And then you align your action, you act on it, and then the last is adapt. So clarity, condition, cost, align, act, adapt.
Okay. Good stuff. We wrap it up there?
Sure.
We did it. All right. Thanks for listening. John, thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Individual tax or legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional. Jon Sheldon is not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Cultivate Financial Planning.